Welcome to the Green Dream video series where we interview senior members of the responsible investment industry, brought to you by ESG Clarity. I'm Natalie Kenway, Global Head of ESG Insight, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Simon Bond, Director of Responsible Investment at Columbia Threadneedle and Manager of the Threadneedle Social Bond Fund franchise. Thanks so much for joining me today, Simon.
Pleasure.
So the assets under management of the strategy have recently hit $1 billion and 300 million for the Threadneedle UK Social Bond Fund. For some, this may seem like quite a lot, but social bond issuance did go through the roof last year. What has driven that rise in issuance and the flows into the strategy?
Well, obviously, one of the answers might be that we've just been through a social crisis in terms of the pandemic that we're still going through. So, of course, that does focus people's mind on social issues, whereas perhaps before they would have been more concentrated on very important environmental factors. But when you have health, education, employment, so much to the fore as a result of the pandemic, I think that really does broaden people's perspective. And actually, the bond market has responded. Over 790% increase in labelled social bonds last year. And at one point this year, there were more social bonds issued than green bonds. And that is really quite some achievement.
Great. And do you anticipate this social bond issuance will continue at this pace?
Yes, I do, because unfortunately, the challenges of society will continue for quite some time as a result of not just the pandemic, but some of the other issues we face. And of course, if we get the environment wrong, that's going to cause some pretty tremendous social problems in itself. And so I think actually the need is there. And I think the bond market has and will continue to respond to that need by issuing these types of bonds.
Great. And what are the key themes on your radar when you look across the bond universe that you can invest in?
What we look for actually are 8 areas of social outcome. These are given to us by our partner, and our partner is the Big Issue Invest, so the investment arm of the Big Issue, which everybody will know from the homeless people selling papers on the streets, etc. But they gave us 8 areas of social outcome, and they go from social housing, employment, education, financial inclusion, all the way down to basic infrastructure type investments, but crucially also includes utilities in the environment. So I'm very much an advocate of not separating environmental and social. Actually, this is one big benefit to society that we should be looking for.
Great. And on that partnership with Big Issue Invest, can you share some of the social outcomes and the difference the fund has made?
Yeah, the Big Issue Invest themselves actually really touch the process in 3 distinct ways. They set the 8 areas of social outcome because they're the people that can define social, and so they have done. They also sit on a social advisory committee, which is an oversight committee and holds me to task in delivering on the promises we make to investors for society, very much like a risk committee would do for the financial side, but on the social characteristics of the fund. And then finally, Big Issue produce once a year for investors an impact report on the fund, which was published in December of last year. So that's really where I would point people to the tangible benefits that we've seen through the investment through the bond market. But some examples are the sorts of things that we've encouraged issuance in. So we've encouraged the establishment of a charity sector within the bond market. We've encouraged the re-establishment of a local authority sector. These are all sorts of areas that would not be available to an equity investor, but of course they all issue bonds. And indeed, those are areas that we really encouraged, plus the encouragement of further issuance of social bonds, sustainability bonds, and indeed green bonds with social benefits.
Great. And if anybody wants to read that impact report, the link is below. So the UK Chancellor recently announced the issuance of a green gilt and the launch of a national infrastructure bank. Were you pleased to see this, and what impact will it have on your investment universe?
Well, yes, I launched a campaign in May 2019, wrote to the DMO and the Chancellor, etc. So this is the culmination of a lot of hard work that went on to encourage the issuance of a green gilt, and indeed actually to encourage what we called a UK development bank, but the Chancellor's finally come up with a UK infrastructure bank as an alternative. So yes, having launched the campaign, supported the campaign, and indeed with the help of the Impact Investing Institute, Green Finance Institute, Grantham Institute, I was on a working party that helped to deliver some ideas and frameworks to the government in order to do that. What benefits it will have? Well, actually a great deal of benefit through the leadership of the UK government. It gives a torch, a light as to where we can get further issuance. So the government issues a green gilt. That should encourage other companies and issuing entities in the UK to issue green social sustainability bonds in their own right. So a great deal of importance about this is to provide that leadership role. And also the proposal that we made called it a Green Plus gilt. It should be better than other green gilts that have come along. It should provide that leadership in terms of making things better. And one of the areas we particularly focused on was, whilst they're environmental projects, we would also like to capture the social co-benefits, green jobs that should be created through investing in green infrastructure. We need to capture those benefits. And so that was part of trying to make a green gilt better.
It must be really nice to see that hard work paid off.
It was extremely good the day that he stood up. I don't watch BBC Parliament very often, but that day I sat and I watched him announcing all of this and heard some of my own words coming back, of course, which was fantastic.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. And the question we always end the Green Dream on is, what is your favourite sustainable drink or snack?
Right, well, I'm going to tell you a story. I was shopping with my daughter in Sainsbury's. Other retailers are available, obviously, but I was shopping in Sainsbury's and I went to get a jar of peanut butter because I like peanut butter on toast. And my daughter physically stopped me from getting the peanut butter and putting it in the trolley. She said, "No, you're not going to buy that." And I thought, well, okay, I know about all these sorts of things. And I was trying to think what was wrong with this peanut butter. And I said, "Well, Sophia, why?" And she said, "Palm oil." And I thought, you've got a point there. So we put it back on the shelf, went home, Googled peanut butter that doesn't contain palm oil. Now, Unilever had just brought out a product. Here it is. And this is Marmite peanut butter. And this does not contain palm oil. Father's Day, 2 weeks later, I wake up in the morning and there's a present, 2 jars of Marmite peanut butter that doesn't contain palm oil, so that I can now put peanut butter on my toast. Now, of course, you either love it or hate it, but I happen to love this. So that's my snack. And there's a bit of a story to it. So it's really responding to the values that are now being shown by the younger generation, particularly in these regards.
What a fantastic story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that peanut butter too. I'm a big Marmite fan. Well,
Great.
Thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing all of your insights with us.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.